Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. It's December 9, 2019, and this is episode 688. This week, I'm really happy to share with you a conversation with an incredibly talented photographer, Christian Meermann. Christian was a member of my group in the Arcanum and went on to mentor his own black and white photography group. As you'll see, Christian's black and white animal portraits are a visual treat, and his approach to architectural photography and his thought-provoking, deliberately confusing series is beautiful and profound. You can follow along with the images on the blog at mbp.ac/688. And I hope you enjoy my conversation with Christian Meermann. So, Christian, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi there. Thanks for having me.
We've known each other for many years, and we worked together in the Arcanum, and you went on to be a mentor yourself there and had a successful group and everything. So we've got lots to talk about. But the listeners here, the audience, are going to want to know who you are. Hopefully some already do know who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Christian Meermann. I live in Germany. I've been taking pictures for oh, that's a good question. I really should have thought about that before. No, since 2007, so it's 12 years now. And that's when I bought my first DSLR. When I'm not taking photos, I work as a teacher. In a public school here nearby, but really, I really like taking pictures more, I have to say. And yeah, I bought first DSLR 2007. I think I got into it because I was going on a trip to the UK, a road trip, 3 weeks in the UK. And I wasn't really happy with the image quality of my point and shoot Olympus. I don't know, point and shoot, small, tiny camera, very noisy, except in the bright sunlight. And I wanted something better, and so I bought a DSLR, and without really knowing anything about cameras or DSLRs. And you can now imagine how the pictures look like. So, so it was a learning curve a little bit, but it was okay. And from that on, I looked at the pictures. They obviously weren't that good, so I wanted to improve them. I got into image editing. And and over the years I developed, how could I say it? An affinity for black and white photography. I think it started because I wasn't happy with the colors I got. And in the very beginning, black and white was a welcome escape route. You know, the picture was a mess, but in black and white, at least the colors didn't distract you anymore. So, but quickly discovered the beauty of it, and over the years, very, very slowly, I developed in that direction. I tend to take pictures in zoos very often. I do animal portraiture, and again, over the years, I discovered how beautiful they are in black and white. And again, the first animal portrait in black and white with a black background, it was an act of color correction, because there was that lion who had just eaten, and it was really, really, really messy. It was very gory, and I wanted to remove the blood from the face, so I converted it to black and white, and so I discovered how beautiful it actually is, and I got into it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, one of the things that I wanted to talk about more than anything was your black and white animal photographs, and they're incredibly striking. We have a few that we're going to talk about as well, and we might as well jump in and start talking about these at the same time. For the listeners, I will put a link into the show notes, but the images will be at mbp.ac/688. And I'll put a gallery in there for people to click on and take a look at the images. But they really are striking. you do such a wonderful job. And I've never actually heard the story about why you started this. So that's really cool. I like the fact that you did it to get rid of the color of the blood, but it also shows that, in photography, the experimentation that we do to sometimes to work around something that we want to avoid leads to something much more beautiful. So
Yeah,
it's really is nice, that the story of that. I want to talk about a number of things with relation to these images. So first of all, we've got this one of the stork that I've got on my screen here. Tell us a little bit about this, what sort of gear do you use? Are you using a really long lens to get in close, or are the animals very close? What sort of process is how do you start the shooting part?
Of course, having done this for a couple of years now, things have changed. So in the very beginning, I was there only with my kids. So I didn't really have much time. It was good luck and point and shoot. And I had maybe 5 minutes for an animal, and then my kids wanted to move on. So I had to leave. And whenever I was lucky, I got a shot. So more or less
I see.
Like that. And but over the years, the kids got older and had more time. So I developed a little bit of patience for the animals to do something interesting. About this particular photograph here, well, that's interesting because it's a bit of a cheat. I really didn't have to, didn't really wait it for the pelican. It's a pelican actually, and not a stork. But for it to get into this pose, because it never really did. That is because I rotated the image clockwise 90 degrees.
I see.
So actually, it was not doing this pose; it was cleaning itself. And it was. You were talking about happy accidents and experimentation. It was a mistyped keyboard shortcut, and which caused the image to rotate. And that's when I thought, "Hey, look at this! This is much cooler than the original landscape orientation." And and that's how I got this image really. So sometimes you have to be lucky.
Yeah, well, I mean, luck is always, it's often an element, and I'll take a bit of luck whenever I get it. And I would never have thought that this was rotated, but it works beautifully. I mean, it looks very natural still. You've got some nice rim light in there. How much of the light and the quality is in your original, and how much would you say I know it's difficult to quantify, but how much would you say you're bringing out in post and along with your black and white processing?
I think most of the time, it's safe to say that I emphasize what is already there.
Okay.
So in this particular case, the rim lighting you mentioned, that was already there. In fact, for my taste, it really is a little bit too strong. It's almost a little bit blown out. I would like to have it a little weaker, or a little softer, I should say. And but okay, but it still works. So
absolutely,
but then the contrast in the neck, in the curved neck, for example, that's something that's already there, but I really have to push to bring it out. And and then what I usually do is towards the edges, I really apply a sort of vignetting effect. I usually don't use the vignette feature. I use graduated filters to make my own custom vignettes in Lightroom, or sometimes in Silver FX Pro too. And that's how I got this effect of the animals emerging from the black background very often. And in the pelican photo, you can see it on the right edge where it really comes out of the dark.
Yeah. I use the same technique on flowers and quite a few images, and I used to use Silver effects as well, as you probably recall. Yeah. But I haven't used it for many years now, since I switched to Capture One. But that's just because I can do similar things in Capture One. But I really do. Looking at them again now, I really like the look that you're getting still. and your animal photos have always been so appealing to me.
Yeah.
Do you do things like dropping control points on the background then and selecting the tone and darkening those down, things like that?
Yeah, I did in the past, before I learned more about Photoshop, I did it exactly that. So, turning or blackening the background really is a multi-step process. There is not that one tool that does it for me.
Yeah.
So back in the day, for many years, I did some darkening in Lightroom. So not that the background was black, but it was darker, and that made it easier for the control points and silver effects to do the rest for me. So this is how I got around how I went about masking. Today I use different techniques involving Photoshop and a tool that is a little bit hidden away in there. It's called the background eraser tool.
Oh yeah.
So that works really nicely. So it gives me a lot more control about the masking process, especially when it comes to fine hair detail or feather detail in this case.
Wow. Yeah. So the second one, again, an incredibly striking images. I mean, the detail and the pose in your tiger shot, and just how sort of, I mean, this guy looks regal and majestic, everything, all of the good words I can think of to give to an animal. Tell us a little bit about this one. I mean, what were there any happy accidents involved in this, or did it take you very long to get the look?
No, not really. Actually, it was a test shot because I got my a test shot in that I got my new 150 to 600 millimeter mill lens. It's 3 years old now, and I think it was one of my first real outings with this lens. So and this tiger was very far away. So what I did that I wasn't really expecting to come out to come out like this, because as usual with zoom lenses like this, they tend to get a bit soft when in the extreme focal length area. So I said, oh, come on, let's try it. Let's see what I can get out of this image. So I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's a 600 mil shot. And well, it didn't get soft at all. So I was quite happy about it. So it wasn't like I was there in front of the tiger and said, oh, this is the pose, I want to get that. So I set up my tripod. I usually use tripods when I do these shots. And only with the intention to see what the lens can do at 600 mil. And this is what I got. And I was, of course, very happy about it.
I'm sure you were. Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. So it's cool that you can use a tripod. I don't know. I don't believe there are any zoos here, or at least around me here in Japan, that would allow you to use a tripod. Really? That's very nice. Yeah. They get too crowded, and the tripod people be tripping up on the legs and stuff. So they're fine with you shooting, but I believe that pretty much all of the zoos that I can drive to or get to wouldn't allow it. That's nice. So, I mean, like I say, though, this guy, the texture, I love how thick his whiskers are, and you can appreciate every detail. And I mean, it really is just a beautiful.
Right in the eyes. I was lucky to that close.
Yeah. There's I don't know. There's almost like a film-like feel to it as well. With the I know it's probably part of the actual formation of his eyes, but you've got this like grain deep in the eyes that looks just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I usually use film presets too to work on the.
Oh, you do? I see.
And I do like a little bit of grain in my images as well. And I also find that adding a little bit of grain to images can sometimes help to give to produce the feel of sharpness and detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
I utilize this too in some of my images.
Well, I mean, the grain, just from a technical perspective, grain is added to images on purpose to break up the transitions in gradations and things. If you don't have any grain, it will always look a little bit steppy. So yeah, I can totally appreciate that. Obviously, I don't normally do it. It's done in the camera, but I've just flicked over while we're talking to your third animal shot, the gorilla. Mm-hmm. And again, you've got a beautiful sort of pensive stare. And tell us a little bit about this one. How did this one come about?
Yeah, it was in the Zoo of Berlin. And I think I didn't really use a tripod for that one because it was too crowded, really. It was when the gorillas were fed, which means that there are always hundreds of people there, basically fighting to get a good viewing point. So it was really crowded. I think oh yes, no, it was right. I used a tripod, but I used it as a monopod. I had to use it as a monopod, and which was quite tricky because when I do, the tripod is usually a little bit too large for it, and I didn't have the room to adjust the legs, and so it was like shooting half blindly from a little bit up in the air. Yeah, but that's something I've learned really. I have a friend who and we go shooting together from time to time, basically landscape stuff, not animals. But very often, if there's a slight chance of the photo not really coming out, if the light isn't perfect, or if it's too windy, or I don't know what, he always finds excuses to not take the picture. And I always say, and that's true, especially for my animal shots, I try anyway. I always shoot, and the worst that can happen is that I throw them away. So in this case, I might easily have said, "Oh, I can't even see what I'm shooting." Because the remote camera didn't have a flip-out screen and stuff like that. But I tried anyway, and I got this shot. And it was feeding time, and it has that little provocative gesture with its hand, with the middle finger. But actually, it wasn't, of course, gesturing anything. It was holding food. You just can't see it because it's behind his hand.
I see.
But it was indeed looking around like this and looking at people into the eye. It was, if an animal like this looks you in the eye, even through a lens, it's quite intense, really.
It's beautiful. They're thinking what you were saying about the finger. There was a shot a few years ago. There was a snow monkey, the monkeys that I go to every year with my tour guests, and one of them had a broken finger, and it was giving everybody the bird the whole time. It was like this middle finger, it was just sticking up. It was very funny. So it definitely reminds me of that. So again, though, beautiful. The way you've got this. I mean, he's just sort of coming out of the dark background. Works very good, very beautiful.
That's using the techniques I just mentioned. Of course, there was a zoo building in the background originally.
Yeah, wow, absolutely stunning. So I'm really happy that we've had a chance to look at these. And you told me that you currently have an exhibition of this work. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, people have been telling me to have a show for years, and I've always said, "Oh no, come on, nobody's coming out to see black and white animals." Yeah, and then there was the notion because we've known each other for years, and I've always had a little bit of a tense relationship with the art scene. It's still a little bit like that because I've always said art is too much business and it's too academic and too whatnot. But then I found this venue. It's in a museum that's not really a photography museum. It's a museum or an art museum. It's a museum for the history of the moving image, so the film of really movie making. So but they have a small room that is reserved for photo exhibitions. So I contacted them. So it's not that art scene background really. There's a relationship to photography and filmmaking, but it's not really an art museum. So that sounded okay for me. And So I contacted the curator there, and he was so he saw the images and was happy to show them, really, and that's how I got that.
That's excellent. I'm really pleased that that's happening. I wish I could go, but it's like halfway around the world is a little bit far for me. If I was in England, I would have tried to get a ticket. But so what's the actual venue called, and how long is the exhibition on?
Yeah, it's the so-called Camera Obscura in the city of Mülheim an der Ruhr. That's all German, but the locals will know it. Yeah. It's that museum, by the way, is in the largest Camera Obscura in Europe or even the world, and you can go and move and walk in the camera itself. It's quite fascinating. Wow. Yeah, and it's on until the 16th of February 2020, with a short break around the holidays. But so it's on for a long time still. And yeah, if you're nearby, go see it.
Yeah, that's excellent. I hope that at least some of the audience are able to get to go and see that. I would love to see. How are you presenting the images? How many images do you have on show?
Yeah, there are 34 photos on display, and they're all on aluminum prints. Or how do you say, aluminum or aluminium? I don't know.
I would say aluminium, but I know that our friends over the pond would say aluminum.
Okay, it's an American English thing now. Yeah. And it's printed directly on aluminum. And sizes are between 30 by 30 or 30 by 45 centimeters.
Oh, nice. That's got to be so stunning. I wish I could see.
Yeah, I was so surprised when the things got on the wall. Because I was originally I would have preferred prints on paper, really. But it wasn't possible because the frames and the glass of the frames they would have provided in the museum, they were all, what's the word? They would all reflect the light. There was no anti-glare coating or whatever it's called on that. And I think that wouldn't have worked with the more or less dark portraits. There would have been too much reflection. So I said, okay, we'll go down. I go with aluminium, and when I saw it on the walls, it was stunning. I'm really overcritical with my work, but when I saw it there, it was gorgeous.
Yeah, I can imagine. Those and all metal prints they've got a depth that it's almost like the daguerreotype. Although obviously the daguerreotype was a different thing, but there's a depth in there that you just can't explain until you see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Envious of anyone that can come to your show. The other type of photography that you do that has always been I've always considered to be very beautiful is your architecture. You've sent a number of images that are architecture related, but also related to your deliberately confusing series and post. So I'm going to bring up the next one that I've got here is the one looks like the glass sidings with something showing from inside. Tell us a little bit about this, and as these tie into your deliberately confusing series, we'll talk about that as well.
Okay. Well, the one you just mentioned, it doesn't tie in that deliberately confusing series. It's part of another series, but they are not so very different. I'll explain and I will explain that in a second. So this one's in a series called Echoes, and which was again in the very beginning of my interest in architectural photography. So I went to that place, which is a former rocket base, nuclear rocket base nearby here, and which was now repurposed. This is an art museum, really. That you see there. So, and what I tried to do in the field was I was exploring how a polarizer would work with windows.
I see.
And that's how that semi-transparently got into the picture. And if you look at the picture, you can see the walls behind the window, but as well the reflection of the clouds.
Yeah, there's a flock of larks or something down in the bottom there as well, isn't there?
yeah, that's what it's, that's what makes the shot more than an
Yeah.
architecture photograph, because I put the birds in there using Photoshop. And the idea about the Echo series is that there is always something in the image, um, in a reflection, but it isn't there in the real world.
I see.
So in
That's
this
very
case,
cool.
you see the birds in the reflection, but you don't see the birds in the real world. And
Mm.
in another image from that series, you will see that there is a shadow of a person, and not the and not the person itself.
I see. So that's the one with the statues in there as well, is it?
No. That's the one with that dark building, and you see through an opening in the building, and to some grass and some trees, and then there's that shadow. It's a portrait format image. It's called
I see. And try it.
Echoes number 10. That's somewhere in the name.
Let me see the titles. Echoes number 10. I see. Oh, I see what you're saying. The shadow on the floor. I've got it.
The shadow on the
Yeah.
floor, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something that you find in almost every image of the Echo series. So I put that in there.
Yeah, these are what I often recall to as Easter eggs. It's something that you have to search for a little bit, and then when you find it, it's like getting a treat. It's something to visually chomp into, like opening an Easter egg.
Well,
Very
the shadow
nice.
is pretty obvious right now, but there are some more subtle Easter eggs in those images of that series.
Wow. Well, this one's so subtle that I looked at this. It's the next one in line alphabetically, and I looked at it straight away. I didn't even see the. I guess the thing is I was looking for something different. So maybe it's easier if you just look straight at the image without a preconception. Yeah. But either way, it's beautiful. It's what I love about your work, the way you think through these things and conceptualize, and your execution is always just so spot on.
Yeah, the thing about concepts is that I very often don't have them while I'm shooting. So all these ideas, that's something that comes in post. And in this particular series, it even goes a step further, because I then thought it would be a good idea if I pair these images with some quotes from books or poems or whatever that have the word echo in them. So I searched the web for quotes, and I really wrote down every quote I found with the word echo in it. Yeah. Then even further, even 4 weeks later, I found out that all these quotes I found, somehow subconsciously, I must have picked those quotes really out. I must that they all have to do with loss and losing somebody, and now there's only the echo of them left.
Oh, wow.
So you see, it didn't have these ideas in the beginning. As I told you, it was an experimental day for me, learning how to use the polarizer. That's what I had in mind while I was shooting. And then it all comes out gradually, week after week. Sometimes it takes months for the stuff to come out.
I love it though. That to me is just another reason why your work's so special, because you come up with these things over time, and I know that you have a thing about academia and artsy fartsiness and all of that. But to me, I mean, I don't know if it's like my mum had a hard time with me because I'm too much like my dad. and they split up when I was a kid, and so she had a hard time with me. She'd always say, "Oh, you're so much like your dad," and I knew that was a bad thing. I actually quite like it because I love my dad, but I think that maybe you've got you are a teacher in your day job. You've got the strong academic connections, and so maybe the closeness to academia is what causes that sort of stuff. But it comes out in your work.
That would be ironic, really.
But your work's ironic. I mean, that's ironic in itself, and I mean that in the best possible way. I think that it's so beautiful the way you do this stuff. So I've actually pulled up the next image in line now, which is the side of a building with the plant inside and the walls. Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about this.
The tree in the foyer. This was really one of those occasions when I really wanted to shoot something complex and complicated. It's part of my deliberately confusing series, because there's another thought behind that. Having been in the Arcanum for so many years and having learned about photography in the internet, I've never really formally learned photography in any way. I learned what I learned on social media, really. And but I found that all the rules and tips and tricks you find there, they work together they work together so that photography gets unified. Because whenever you disregard the rules, whenever you try to do something new, there's always somebody who tells you, "Oh, come on, you forgot that rule. You must heed to that rule. You must follow that rule." And also, whenever you leave the mainstream, the mainstream that is really created by people who follow all the rules. Whenever you do that, you always get less and less likes. So, yes, that's a factor.
I know what you mean.
I hated that because I thought, okay, these might not be the best images, granted, but they are creative. I was trying, I was experimenting. And how can people really not even try or not even want to try to see what I was trying to show them? That's what photography is about for me as a viewer, not as a creative, but as a viewer. When I look at an image, I find out what it is that the artist, the photographer, is trying to tell me. And it's not about me trying to see something in the image that maybe the photographer isn't trying to say at all. That's what this thing is all about. So in those years, or I don't know, it may be still true, but I found that minimalism was the big thing. So people wanted images to be simple and easily accessible. And I said, no, I would do the exact opposite, more or less as an act of a rebellion. So I wanted the image to be complex. I wanted to more or less, it's a strong word maybe, but not to force or to make the viewer to work with the image, to decrypt it. Didn't want the image to be easy to understand. I wanted it to be difficult to understand, and I was hoping that once the viewer was doing that, once the viewer did that, he would have something like an aha moment. Yeah. And that's something that could happen in this image about the tree in the foyer, because it is obviously a foyer that was protruding from the wall. It stood out a little, and the foyer was so big that they actually had a huge tree inside. That's what I found interesting here, because obviously you don't expect trees to be inside of buildings.
No,
especially trees that are not so big, and or trees that are so big. So I thought, maybe if they see it, they would try to decode it as a reflection, and that would not work, because obviously it isn't a reflection, and they would try to see it and somehow discover that this must be inside the building. And that would be their aha moment. And so that was the idea for this shot, and basically similarly for all the shots in the deliberately confusion series.
I love it. I know what you mean. I mean, people will always try to find flaws or faults in an image, and sometimes can't see past the creativity that you're trying to instill in it. I stopped listening to people online probably before you got into photography. So you're talking about 2007 or so when you got. I mean, at the beginning of the 2000s, I posted more. I was more active posting on places like Flickr and stuff, and it didn't take long to bump into what you were talking about, you know. And I don't feel as though I'm like one of the best photographers out there by a millionth of a shot. I'm not under any delusions, but I know that for me, if I post something online, it means that I'm happy with it, and so I don't necessarily need someone to tell me why they dislike the image, and partly because I don't trust the person, their motives. A lot of the time, I want to hear whether my wife tells me she thinks a shot of mine sucks. I listen because I trust her, and I know that her motives are to try to help me to become a better artist and photographer. But some guy in a basement, I don't know what his motives are. I don't know his background. I've got no reason to trust him, so I've got no reason to actually listen to that feedback. And that for me was, I mean, it's very similar feeling to what you're saying, and so I totally relate to all of that. And I think that, I mean, we should all just try to take in people's art at face value. We don't have to like it, and we don't have to necessarily voice our feelings either. I think most of the time for me, the main thing is, if I ask someone's opinion, I want an honest opinion, and I will decide whether I act on that opinion or not. If I don't ask for it, I actually just rarely want it. So it's just how I am.
Yeah, I totally get that. And again, ironically, even if I ask, sometimes I do, or I don't do that as much as I did before now. But when I did that a couple of years ago, more often than not, whenever I asked, I didn't get answers.
Yeah.
That's the irony in it. When you ask, people don't answer. If you don't ask, they do answer, but you don't want to hear it. So that's a shame, really. But again, sorry.
No, yeah. I mean, I was going to say. I mean, that was the thing with our. I mean, you were one of the mentees in my first. Well, my only. It took a long time, over a couple of years, but you were one of the first people to join what they called my cohort in the Arcanum, and it's quite nostalgic talking about this now. It seems like a million years ago when we were doing this, but I remember, we did structured critique sessions when I would spend, the sessions were often about 30 minutes long. I would spend an hour preparing for each of those sessions because I wanted to make sure I gave people something of value when we spoke. And hopefully it was for many of the people that I work with. But I think that they are the more valuable things these days. If you get in a situation where you can actually have a mentor or someone that you trust give you their honest opinion about your work, and alongside feedback that can help you to improve or to at least understand why that person developed their own particular views on your work, then that's much more valuable than just open comments from an audience or from a group that you don't really know that well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the day the Arcanum went south was, I think it was a great loss for the internet, because I still believe the concept was fantastic, really. Maybe it wasn't the right time for something like the Arcanum. I don't know, but I think it was great, and I agree with everything you said about it. And I can tell you that, you provided lots of value. And in fact, very often I still find that I realize things that I learned from you back in those days. I realized the value of those things today. I didn't really
that's great.
understood it back then, but now when I'm in a field, sometimes I say, oh, that's why Martin said that. And sometimes I rediscover something, something I forgot because I don't do landscapes all the time today. When I do that, that's right. Okay, that's what Martin said, and it was very, very helpful, really.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm pleased that happened. Yeah. So the next image I've pulled up is the one with the statues reflecting and the person's shadow again. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, well, that was I was really happy about that one, because It's absolutely not obvious from the image, but actually the statues aren't reflecting.
Aren't they?
No, they aren't. What we
It's
are
the
looking
window,
at,
the wall that's reflecting.
yeah, the wall is reflecting exactly. But the
Brilliant.
statues were behind the window, and I was so busy adjusting the polarizer to get that effect that I hardly even noticed the person walking by creating the shadow.
I see.
So, but
Oh, wow.
of course, I was happy when I realized, oh, come on, and that's that shadow, because it added another layer to that already difficult to decode image.
Mm. Oh, I love that. I would have put a three-figure dollar amount on that being the statues reflecting. The fact that it's the other way around is awesome.
I actually wrote a blog post about how this image, how I took this image, and what the light did, and what was the
Mm.
reflection and what was not reflection. So,
Well, that's a good segue into. I mean, your blog. I will obviously put a link to this in the post for this episode. But your blog is at chm-photography.com, and
yeah,
then under the blog menu. So I will, like I say, I'll put links in. I'm also going to put a link in to your deliberately confusing post, because I mean, that's a great post. I really like the views that you're expressing there. I think that your comment about near the top about a lot of the time the people that are trying to teach us stuff are self-professed masters and stuff, and I think that there's a lot of danger in that these days. I think it's obviously the internet has leveled the playing field. Anyone can be whatever they want. But I think that what you're talking about here is very powerful in that, I think we have to be careful who we try and learn from. And
yeah,
I would think that there are very few people online that I would consider. I mean, obviously, you can tell when someone's the real deal, when they've actually got something valuable. But when you're looking, it can be difficult to sift out the ones that are not quite there, can't it?
yeah, absolutely. And I think even though the internet gives us the opportunity to be and do whatever we want, I think it's sometimes important to remind ourselves that we shouldn't do everything that we could.
Oh,
Because,
that's true.
yeah, so of course I could open my mouth and pretend I was a great photographer and do great color work, for example. But should I really do that? No. Maybe I have a thing or two to say about black and white photography. That might be true, but but I could be everything and act everything I wanted on the internet, and I think you're right. It's difficult sometimes to discern what the real deal is, and what not.
Yeah, I think that the thing is you have to. It's like workshops, tours, and workshops. I mean, I've been running my workshops for 14 years now, I think it is, and it's I've got so many behind me and so many people out in the world talking about how great an experience they had, that a lot of the people that come on my tours now have heard about the tour from another person who's been on the tour.
Yeah.
So that word of mouth is it gives me credibility as a tour leader, and people know that they can come and get a good experience. But when you book on something based purely on what you find on the web, if there's I think the important thing is to always try and find some sort of either references or authentic, what's the word? The testimonials, things like that. I mean, all of my tour pages have a few testimonials on there from people that have joined. I don't get them from everybody that comes because it's a pain to actually write them. So I just ask people, and those that really feel strongly will give me some words. But I think it's really important to find and look and make sure that the person you're either learning from or you're thinking of booking on a workshop with, and that really does have a background. And of course, from your perspective, you're a professional teacher anyway, and so that in maybe a different area, but teaching is not something that you can do just because you're good at something.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. It's knowing something is one thing. Explaining something is something completely different. And yeah, that's yeah. I realized that quite recently myself. You know, even as a teacher, I couldn't I couldn't teach my son how to play the drums. You know, I've been
Oh,
as a hobbyist playing the drums for many years now. Down in my basement, I have an electronic drum kit, and well, then my son picked up the drumsticks and said, "Come on, teach me. What must I do?"
yeah.
And I just couldn't. I was giving him things to play that were much too difficult, and I had no clue what the best first steps were. So knowing something, and I know a little bit how to play the drums myself, but that doesn't really enable me to teach the playing, and that's the same for everything. Yes.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great example. A great example. So like I say, I'm going to put a link to that post into the show notes. I think that it's definitely worth a read from anyone that's interested. And let me just go back, find our folder of photos again, and let me take a look at what the next one. We've got two more here. The second to last one is the one with the glass and the cylindrical pillar inside.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this.
That was in Berlin as well, in one of the buildings where the German parliament is working. It's a very public and transparent place. It shows in the architecture because there's much glass there. And again, it's the same concept, me using the polarizer and trying to find just the right balance that makes it difficult to see what is reflection and what is actually behind the glass. So
yeah, excellent.
And that's again following the rule or the concept of the deliberately confusing series, which, by the way, whenever I do photography or architectural photography, I'm still looking for things that I can add to that series, because I find it much more fascinating than just putting a building and then be done with it.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, working in series, building series of images is something that it always helps our photography, and as a learning experience, but also I think it helps to build these more powerful bodies of work. And you don't necessarily have to do. It's like you're doing your black and white animals, and you're deliberately confusing series sort of in parallel. You don't necessarily have to do one and complete it and then move on. Just keep your options in mind and just shoot and add to the series whenever the opportunity arises.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that it builds up something that I like to call visual vocabulary. Once you're into that series, you start to see compositions, frames, images in situations where otherwise you might not have seen it if you haven't done all the work in that area before.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's something I think Ralph Gibson he always quotes something, another teacher of his, I think it was Dorothea Lange, told him. She told this concept a point of departure, I think. That's whenever he gets interviewed, he tells that story, and I think it's, if I understand it correctly, it's about the same thing. You have that project, that starting point, animal projects, abstract reflections, something like that. Then you have something to work on, and that really determines how you see and what you look at, and that comes into my mind when you said your stuff about projects. I think it's important.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got the last image on my screen now. The one, the last in the list. So it's the shape in like two triangles together, and the pillar or the reflection of the outside world again in there. Tell us a little bit about this last one.
It was taken in the city of Cleo, which is really not a city anybody must know, really. It's quite a boring place, but they do have a university there, and that is interesting in terms of architecture. And so I went to that campus and found that building, which is some, I don't know, university building. And what you see there is actually a staircase going down. And I think even
Oh yeah, I see that.
in that white shape there, you can see the beginning of a handrail.
Yeah, yeah. I've
And
got it.
I loved how all these shapes from the reflections and from the transparency, something that is behind me, something that's behind the window, add to that really abstract and almost slightly cubistic uh, uh, image, really. So it's not
Yeah,
not instantly recognizable what I'm actually looking at there. It must be some
yeah.
kind of building, that much it's clear, but I think for a viewer who sees this image for the first time, it should take him a long time to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I love the fact that you've got this beautiful dramatic sky in there as well. You know, that adds so much texture to the image, I would say. Even in the shadows, it makes not the shadows, the reflections. It makes the reflections so much more interesting.
Yeah.
But then you look through that and you start to look down the stairs. You notice the rails, as you say. Yeah, it's one of those. It's an Easter egg sort of thing. You've got to work for it, but then there's a nice reward as you start to understand, and you have to sort. It's almost like peeling off layers.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
you have to deconstruct the
absolutely
image.
wonderful. Yeah, I almost said it's so cool that they've got a CHM sticker on the window down there as well, but I realised that that's your watermark.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Christian, let's see. I know that I have in my little framework that I've been referring back to. I see that I've already answered the last thing, which was where people can find you online. As far as your chmphotography.com website's concerned, are you on Instagram and on some of the other networks?
Yeah. Well, I'm on Flickr. That's maybe the network where I'm most active, really. Flickr. You can find me there.
Okay.
And from there, I post stuff from Instagram to Instagram. So people don't really have to follow both networks. I basically post the same stuff on both of them.
Okay.
Post on Flickr first, and maybe if you are on a computer, you should check out Flickr. And if you are on a cell phone, maybe Instagram might be the better choice. And you can you should be able. I think I have links to both networks on my website.
Yeah, I'm just looking here now. On the right side, you have a series of icons for the stuff that you're interested. So this is great. I'm sure that people will be able to come across and feast on a lot of your Easter eggs and your other work that you've put out there. But do you have anything else that you want to add before we wrap up, Christian?
Well, not really, actually. So
yeah. No, that's okay. Okay, well, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been wonderful speaking with you again. It must have been at least 2 or 3 years, maybe 2 years or so. So It's lovely to actually just sit and have a conversation. And I'm really pleased that we've got a chance to share this with the audience. And so good luck with your continued work. Congratulations on your show, and I hope that we get a chance to get back together again, maybe in a few years' time, and talk about what else you've been up to.
Yeah, I liked it very much. It was good talking to you, Martin. Thanks for having me again. And maybe we should do something like an Arcanum reunion one day.
Yeah, that would be great.
Or something, or two.
Yeah,
just have a little chat.
That would be nice. Absolutely. All right. Well, really, thank you, Christian, and we'll catch up again at some point soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Christian Meermann as much as I did. Thanks very much for listening today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share a link with your friends. Subscribe in iTunes or your favorite podcast program to ensure uninterrupted delivery. If you have a moment to rate the podcast or leave us a review in iTunes, that helps to keep us relevant in the huge number of podcasts out there now. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, and links to everything that I'm up to are at martinbaileyphotography.com, so do drop by and take a look. I'll be back next week with another episode, but in the meantime, you take care and have a great week, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye.